Neil, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Rich.
How you doing? Very
Good,
well,
thanks.
thanks, mate. You good?
Yep, all good. Thank you very much. It's Friday. It's quite sunny.
End of a long week.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 14th episode of the 6 Sessions. Each week, I've been lucky enough to chat with somebody in the growth space across marketing, sales, and CX. And today's guest is going to talk to us about creating tiny little communities to the tune of 5 million people. So every marketer out there has thought about how they use community as part of their growth strategy. Here's a guy that's done it at scale. These chats are designed to be short and sweet, but hopefully full of insight. But the short and sweet bit is a lie. You're probably in for at least 30 minutes, but it'll be full of insight. And it's definitely unfiltered, which is what makes it fun. Having been in the industry for north of 15 years now, today's guest is an acquisition superstar. He's one of those rarities in marketing, in the marketing world, a tangible, successful outcome even his parents can understand at the dinner table. And over the last 7 years, he's helped acquire and grow a community of 5 million people across 2 continents. That community is now helping brands launch and grow products and ultimately growing revenues at scale and at speed. Joining us all the way from the capital, I'm excited to close out this week with Neil Stephenson. Neil, welcome to the 6 Sessions. Now tell us some clever shit about community-driven growth.
Thanks, Rich. I don't know who wrote that intro. I'm gonna blame Sam for that, probably.
No, that was me. He gave me some tidbits, and he also told me to ask about the countdown teapot, but we'll ask about that in a bit.
Okay, right.
So we're into month 3 of 2021. How's it started out for you?
Yeah, it's been good. We tend to have good. The start of our years is always good because we do quite a bit of paid advertising, and paid advertising is cheap in Q1. So it always starts out good for us. But we've got like big expansion plans this year, so we're really ramping up our presence in the US market, and that started well, and UK as well. So yeah, it's been a good start to the year.
Well, how's it been for like a Brit brand kind of breaking into US soil? How have you found that like transition from a marketer's perspective? Like, how have you found? Is it like any difference in the marketing or processes or tactics?
Well, it's broadly similar to UK. There's some subtle differences. So you can't just directly copy and paste campaigns, but you can certainly take the frameworks and do some subtle changes to things. Like, I mean, for a start, the basics like changing mum to mom and nappy to diaper and all those kind of things. But the 2 markets behave fairly similarly, so we can apply the same general tactics with some nuances to both markets. Of course, when it comes to some of the deals that we offer the parents, then it can be different. In the UK, it tends to be one homogenous market, whereas in the US, you've got 50 different mini countries. So like it's quite different in that respect.
How was 2020 for you guys?
Interesting, like for everyone, I'm sure. It was. I mean, we being a digital company is obviously less hit than most. Although some of our partners are in the physical world, so one or 2 big partners perhaps had to pause while they reconsidered their own marketing efforts. For others, they were growing well, so they continued. On balance, it was fine. It was probably a slight negative, but on balance, could have been a whole lot worse. We got through it. That's the important thing.
And so everybody that's listening, so what's your main business? What does Fanfinders do?
I'm surprisingly bad at answering this question after like 7.5 years.
Aren't you the marketing guy?
Yeah. So we're basically we act as a middleman, as a value exchange between brands who want to market their products to mums and mums or dads, but mostly mums who want to who want to get good deals, offers, discounts, competitions on baby products. So we act as middleman. Parents join our club, and then they're presented with a list of our offers from our brand partners, and they can select which ones they want. And in exchange for sharing their details with the brand, then they get sent this offer or discount, etc.
Oh, nice. And what's your role within this mix? Like, what do you do at Fanfinders?
So, I mean, my title is Chief Marketing Officer. In practice, I manage our marketing team. So it's everything around, my main function is making sure that we get enough members onto the site. We have two sides to the business: getting enough members to claim these deals, and the other side is the sales arm of things, which is getting enough brands on board to provide the deals for these parents that we're signing up. So my job is on that first side, getting enough members to join our club.
What does your day-to-day look like as a CMO? Because like you and I have spoken in the past, and you always strike me as a marketer who like likes to at least keep your hands dirty in the kind of the doing. So like, what does your day-to-day look like as CMO?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, back in the day, that in the first year or two, I was just basically in various ads manager platforms for 10 hours a day, every day, and that was the good times. That's when I enjoy. But now I have teams to manage, and no, it's good. It's good. So I've got a good marketing team across various. We've got like affiliate marketing, content marketing, socials, SEO, PR. So I've got good people under me who manage all those sides of the business. So I have to keep in touch with all of them and make sure that everything's going well in those. But also I still get to mess around in Facebook Ads Manager and do the stuff that got me into this in the first place.
So this is so I do a podcast with a guy called Joe Glover, and this week we were talking about the difference between like experience-based learning and kind of education-based learning for marketers in particular. And one of the questions that Joe asked me was how do I stay sharp or honed or keeping up to date with like marketing tactics, for example. So more about tactics rather than strategy, because I think it's very easy when you go to a more senior role, it's very easy to be more like strategically led. How do you keep in touch with like the tactical side of marketing as you're kind of growing throughout your career?
I'm a member of a few really good like smallish Slack communities who talk about all the like latest like growth hacking methodologies and things like that, and then also a few Facebook groups which are like high level Facebook media buyers. So the kind of content that's in these groups and the discussions that we have in there are really, really good. So that's how I tend to keep on top of them. And these guys are some of the best in the world. So like I feel like that definitely keeps me ahead of the curve.
Nice. So you've been the driving force in growing a community of over 5 million people. How'd you do it? How did you go from no people to 5 million people that you can now sell engagement back to the brands and kind of help them shift product?
Paid advertising. Next question. No, it's a lot of it's difficult when you're building a community. On one side, it's a two-sided coin because you have to be able to offer the community something. So it's a very tricky thing to build a community on one side, and then also to build the brand side of things with things to offer the community. So you can't build a community if you haven't got anything to offer them, and you can't get offers if you haven't got a community to market to. So you kind of have to build both up gradually, except you're going to try and build up the community as cheaply as possible to get critical mass to be able to get these great deals from these brands, and then start to push them up gradually, and then eventually you reach that breaking point and they're just both sustainable enough, and you can just grow them from there. But on the community side of things, a huge amount of the growth was done through paid advertising, because that's the most rapidly scalable way there is to get new users.
So in that extent, you're promoting the group, the Facebook page or the group, and kind of building it up that way through paid, rather than kind of funneling it out to landing pages and things.
Yeah, it's effectively just a classic customer acquisition funnel. So we do direct response ads on Facebook saying, listen, the benefits of like join this club and you can get free products, offers, discounts, competitions, etc. And we take them through to a landing page, which is just, it's got the form with all the information we need from them, and then we just present them with all the list of the best, like the top 10 offers probably they can get, and they just go through and claim those, and that's our kind of funnel, as it were.
One of the like fascinating things I've always found about your business model is So you typically sell to like you were engaging with mothers and you said fathers as well, but so like people who are at that kind of like earlier stage of parenthood, do you find there's like a large churn of like, so when people kind of get to the kind of the back ends of parenthood, they start to then drop out of that and you're kind of constantly fulfilling that funnel, or do the people kind of stay and then, I don't know, pass on deals or whatever to others?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It is a problem. Like, obviously we can't, people are only parents, like we've been going for 7 years. So some of the people that we signed up that had like 1-year-olds at the start have now got an 8-year-old, and that's not what the kind of community is for. So we have thought about developing like, future, like, your toddler club, your school kid age club, but they're not quite as catchy titles. So we have a consistent, like we have fairly consistent acquisition numbers every month. So it keeps feeding the community with brand new intake. So we've always got a fairly set range of people at the start of pregnancy, people at the end of like the having a baby, you would say like 18 months or whatever. So we've always got a kind of moving conveyor belt, and there's people falling pregnant, every month. So people keep joining our site.
Yeah, I haven't quite. There's this influx of lockdown babies. Like I've got 2 kids, and like another baby is the least likely thing to come out of this lockdown, in my opinion. So whenever the C-suite think about community-driven marketing, sometimes the loss of control will kind of like scare them off that process. What would you say to those shying away from it on that basis? So like I've had plenty of conversations with CEOs or marketing directors where they're saying, we want to own that brand. We're not comfortable putting it out there and allowing people to run with it. What would you say to them?
Well, it's actually a pretty valid concern. We're reluctant to give away complete control, like let the community go interact in a free-for-all, because we've seen the kind of toxic communities that can break down into when you just for a start, it's a huge moderation issue. You have to put a lot of resource behind moderation if you just allow the community to just go unfettered into the wild. So we actually run a slightly more curated community with based around our Facebook page. We have regular, very popular like sessions called Ask the Fans, and so parents can write in privately to us and suggest questions that, like, I really want to answer to this. I want to ask this community of like 3 million UK mums, how do you do this? How do you deal with this kind of problem? And then we put it out a few times a week, and we get huge responses, really, really valuable responses. And that's one of our most popular like areas of the site from the feedback we've got from parents. So the interactions in the comments is where the real community kind of comes in. And even that can turn, when you ask a question as divisive as breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, you're going to get a lot of interesting discussions going on in the comments. So
how do you guys moderate that? Like, what's your stance on it? Who is making the call of that? Like, is Alec like effectively your Zuckerberg making the call on what should be said? And
no, he's equally ginger. We kind of let it go because we create enough at the start of the process. We can kind of let them discuss, because it's all fair game. Like, we're asking questions. Obviously, we're gonna, if there's anything like really inappropriate being said, we'll delete it and step in and say, well, give that a rest. But once you ask a question about bottle and breastfeeding, for instance, you have to allow debate on it. So yeah, we're not the UK government. You have to allow debate on things.
So I'm not going to dig into that one. So the question that like everyone has around the stuff is, how do you actually turn a community into revenue? Like how do you bridge one to the other?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, like it's important that for us anyway, this is how it works for us. So we bring people on and we kind of onboard them, because when we advertise our community, we do it from a benefits driven perspective. So we say, these are the things you'll get when you join this community, and it's all the offers that we have from our brand. So we make sure that we put these offers directly in front of them as they're coming through to join. So on the joining process, they've already seen all the best offers, and of course we work as a performance marketing partner, so we get paid on we get paid effectively per lead or per per user who agrees to share their details or wants to claim something from one of these brands. So we make sure to try and monetize upfront, and it's a win-win, because the parents get these offers, discounts, etc. The brand gets their kind of lead, and then the parent gets access to the community, and everyone wins there.
So presumably after 7 years and 5 million people, you know a thing or two about kind of community building now. So if you were to start that process again, how would you do it?
Another good question. It was definitely tricky. Community building is not easy. Like I say, because you always have the same problem about building up both sides. So I might want to build up something that didn't rely on a second side, or at least have something a bit more off the shelf that you could perhaps offer them. So you don't need to build both up at once, because that was the hard part of it. So yes, I don't actually know what I'd do. I probably wouldn't.
So, all right, how if I reframe that, what's the biggest mistake you think you made in growing that 5 million?
When we first started, for the first few years, we weren't doing the bit I just discussed properly, the monetizing people early on the path. So we just we let them everyone just signed up, and our software and our kind of site wasn't good enough to get the benefits in front of these people well enough. So they were kind of coming in, they were getting a bit lost, interacting, and then maybe leaving without actually claiming any offers, which didn't generate us any revenue. So a few years, maybe 3 years in, we properly rejigged our whole entry path. And we could have done it earlier, much earlier. So we rejigged our whole entry path, and it put these things further forward in the journey, and that allowed us that really basically doubled our revenue almost overnight. And although it's great when you find something like that, it's like, well, we just doubled our revenue, but we just haven't been doing it for the last 2 years, so we could have had more. But that allowed us the kind of profitability to put more into scaling and growing the user base. What's
the main KPI you focus on as a CMO?
Well, for me, it's cost per new user. That's kind of we have two main levers in the business, which is cost per user and revenue per user, and obviously the middle bit is the important bit. But for me, my job is cost per user, but also have to hit certain targets to generate enough users as well. So we have to hit certain numbers of users, because our brand partners rely on, we've committed to supplying X thousand per month to these people. So we have to make sure we hit our volume quotas as well. So you've got
you have to keep building that community. You have to keep the cost down of building that community. And you also have to make sure that community is driven enough to the various offers that you guys are committed to on the revenue model on the back end.
Yeah, exactly. And if our marketing, if our acquisition marketing goes down the pan and it's costing us a lot more to get users, we can't just turn it off and have a think, because we have these targets to hit for our partners. So we have to act fast. I mean, there's been times where I can't do anything else for 3, 4, 5 days in a row, because I need to sort this out yesterday. So I have to make sure we get it fixed.
Sounds like there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, there is. It's fun though.
So how did you originally get into marketing?
I'll try and condense the story as much as possible. I studied music at university, played drums, and I spent most of my time at university either playing drums or playing poker. This is when playing poker was easy to make money, back in 2003, 2004, sure I made. But then, so when I finished uni, I got I didn't want to just try and get a career in music, because I wasn't. I mean, you have to be top 0.01% of people to really make it properly in music. So I wasn't quite that good. So I decided online poker was booming at this time. It was 2006. It was not too long after, like this guy won the World Series of Poker by qualifying for like $1 on PokerStars. So then everyone thought they could do that. So online poker was huge back in like 2006. So I decided to try and get a job in poker. I was living up in Dundee at the time. I put my CV forward to an agency, and they said, "Can you come down to London tomorrow for an interview?" And I was like, "Okay." I went down on the Friday, had an interview in the afternoon, got offered the job. "Can you start on Monday?" "Yeah, okay." So I went back up, came back down on Sunday, and that was me. So I was in as a online marketing executive for a poker company. And I did several poker companies, online gambling for about 5-6 years. Then I went to work for like a kind of retail company in marketing. And then I kind of decided to leave that, and that's where kind of Fanfinders started.
So, well, you are probably like the 5th person I know that has a poker-based entry into the acquisition world. It's like, what is it that drives that? Like, I know you've kind of gone to do acquisition for a poker company, which kind of makes sense, but is there? I just don't see where the link is.
Well, I guess it's a similar-ish mindset, as in like it's data-driven, making like tactical decisions. I do a lot of like, I guess, critical thinking about things. I think the skill sets probably overlap. I'm talking about purely like performance marketing, like acquisition marketing, rather than like brand marketing or kind of that kind of thing. But the stuff that involves going into, so there's a big crossover between people that do, for instance, online poker and online trading. And I see like if you go in about any online ads platform, it's quite similar in terms of like lots of numbers floating around, lots of stats, lots of crunching numbers and stuff like that. So I can definitely see the link there.
What excites you most about marketing and growth at the moment?
Well, I mean, for me, the best feeling in marketing, and it still doesn't really go away, is just when you're launching new campaigns and you've just come up with a new angle or a new campaign you put together, you've hit live, waiting for it to get approved, and then it goes live, and then it's like, right, F5 every 5 minutes, looking at stats, waiting to see that first conversion come in, then checking the CPA over the next like 3, 4, 5 hours. And then a lot of times it just doesn't work at all. But when it does work, when you get something that's looking like it's working really well, and you can scale it, that's really, really exciting for me.
I absolutely agree. Like the suspense of waiting for that first lead to come in after you just set a campaign live, to actually seeing it come through and then seeing the numbers starting to edge up. But the terrifying thing is when you've had like 1 or 2 leads come in and then it plateaus for a little bit and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. So it looked like it was good, and then turns out you just got lucky for the first 2, and that's the
end. How are you planning to grow Fanfinders in 2021?
So we're really going to be pushing on the US side of things. We just hired a really good guy in the States who's kind of managing a lot of our kind of business development over there. He just came on board, I think, in November, so he's really getting his feet on the table, and I think we should hope to grow a lot this year. And we've been ramping up our user numbers in the US as well. So we're pushing up to we're signing up over 100,000 a month in the US now, users. So
nice.
That's that kind of growth for 2021 is mostly hinged on the US.
So I've got 2 questions left.
Mm-hmm.
Big top line question: what's next in growth? Like, where should people be focusing their efforts now?
I mean, there's always new platforms coming out, isn't there? There's always a new platform that's big. I mean, for me, at the moment, for me, there's nothing's going to replace, like, see, I'm quite biased from a paid acquisition point of view. So, on that side of things, nothing's going to displace Facebook ads or Google ads anytime soon. Although things like, to be fair, things like TikTok ads and Snap ads are definitely, they're a bit more of they're a different animal, and the content you need to provide for them is very different, but they could grow into something pretty big. So yeah, it's always new platforms. In terms of growth overall, I mean, who knows? It's probably not going to be, I remember everyone keeps saying for ages, like, oh, the voice search is the next big thing. It's like, come on. come on, how much volume are you going to get from that? I don't see that happening.
So, last question. When I was given the kind of the intro to look at for this, I was told that you have a countdown teapot. What's the story behind that?
Well, Sam told me about this. I got it down from the shelf. A little. So I've always been a big countdown fan. That's how I learned letters and numbers with my mum when I was like 3, watching Countdown on television with the great Richard Whiteley.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always kind of loved that show. That's how I kind of got into like words and numbers. And then I decided to apply to go on the show in like 2013. Got accepted. So you have to go for a audition type process. I was a bit nervous when I got there. I was like, oh god, how good is everyone going to be? And like they give you it's basically 10 people in a room, and they simulate the rounds. They say, right, here's 9 letters, make a word. So they did it, and I was like, oh, I've got an 8, that's quite good. I was like, went around the room and everyone was like 4, 4, 3, 4, 5. I was like, oh god, okay, they should be okay. So yeah, I got on the show, and I won I had 2 goals. My first goal was I needed to get a countdown teapot, which you get for winning like 1 show. So I had to get that. And then I really wanted to be an octo champ, which is winning 8 in a row, and then you stop. So I got my teapot, but I won 3 episodes, and then I came up against someone ridiculously good, who I almost beat, but not quite. And she finished second overall. And I think if I hadn't come up against her and anyone else, I would have got to be an octo champ, which was, one of my main ambitions. But maybe I'll do it again in 10 years.
Still running? You could do a rerun?
Yeah, they tend to not allow you. Actually, the person that beat me, she first went on about 20 years ago, and she didn't get a teapot. So she's been stewing for 20 years, like revising, I'm going to get a teapot. And it would have been relatively enjoyable to stop her a second time, because I didn't like her very much. But
does the teapot get used?
The teapot gets used quite strictly for drinking Southern Comfort and lemonade out of parties with my friends. It's a ridiculous thing. Like, I had this group of friends back at university when we were playing poker. For whatever reason, Southern Comfort was our kind of token drink of choice. So when at the kind of countdown watching party I had when it was on, God, this makes me sound really cool. The countdown watching party we decided to fill it with Southern Comfort lemonades and just like pour it into everyone's mouths and stuff. So that's kind of just remained a ritual that we do every now and then. So yeah.
Is that the Fanfinders campaign launch celebration now?
Yeah, when we get a lead in the first 5 minutes, it's get the Soko out.
Neil, always a pleasure, and thanks for being up for doing the 6 sessions with me. If anybody wants to follow up with you, how do you want people to connect?
They can add me on LinkedIn. Just you'll find me as Neil Stephenson. Yeah, it's probably the best way, and then you can get in touch from there. And
you've got a growing marketing team. Should people go and see if they can find a career path with you guys? Is there a page on the website?
That's a good question. I'll have to ask Sam. There is some contact section on the site which says, I mean, we're always interested in speaking to good people. I actually just hired somebody yesterday, well, who started yesterday. But we're looking for good people. So if this sounds like your kind of thing, if you fancy some Southern Comfort out of a teapot, then get in touch.
It's pretty high up there on the benefits list.
Yeah, it's above unlimited holiday.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Next week, we have Paul Erndon, someone who knows how to grow an agency, both from within and without. Hopefully see you all then. Cheers, Neil.
Thanks, Rich.